r/ask Reddit. What is your I don't get paid enough for this shit moment? Plumber owner of a mobile home called and said they had a stinky yard. I could smell it when I pulled up. The mobile home was new and had only been set up for about 8 months. While setting it up, someone didn't tighten the no-hub band of the toilet in the kids' bathroom. 8 months of flushed toilet was all over the ground under the home and had just started being noticed outside. I told the homeowner to call the guys that set it up to come fix it. I wasn't crawling under there. Oh god. And it must have been smelling long before it got that bad. I'm picturing them walking around their house for months, asking what is that smell? It had brick underpinning, so it mostly was just pooling underneath the home. I worked at Circuit City when I was 17. Heard a noise of packaging being opened in the movie section. Found a guy crouched down cutting open DVD boxes and stealing the discs. He looked at me, held his knife out and said, "Got a problem?" I just replied, "I don't get paid enough for this shit," and backed off. I went to the back room of the warehouse area to call a manager to tell them what happened. Never could get a hold of anyone, so I just chilled in the warehouse area for a half hour to decompress. The wise choice. Why get shanked over some ducking megacore DVDs? Imagine getting killed over Big Mama's house. When I was doing 90% of my boss job in hopes of a full-time promotion that I had been promised for 3 years, and he took all the credit and told me my promotion wasn't in the budget. Bro, duck that. Yup, I left 2 weeks later. I'm a public librarian. I was helping someone in the computer room and turned to tell someone he needed to keep his exclamations at the video he was watching down. Just then, the woman I was helping leapt aside because the man I was shushing pissed himself. It ran down onto the jacket he had tied around his waist, down the chair, onto the ground. Turns out he'd snuck in alcohol and was totally blackout drunk. I told him he had to leave. He put the piss-covered jacket on and stumbled out, as I returned with gloves and cleaning supplies. Another patron decided this was a good time to complain about some kids who were making noise. I took a deep breath and said, "This is a good time for us all to appeal to our higher selves and do our best in the moment. Please just adapt for a minute." Then I thought about the student loans I took out for the master's degree as I scrubbed up piss. I took a deep breath and said, "This is a good time if we all just appeal to our higher selves and do our best in the moment. Please just adapt for a minute. There really ought to be some kind of beatification process for librarians." Absolutely. This is an eye-opening statement, I think. As a society in the US, we have forgotten this aspect of humanity. We have forgotten we do have a higher self and only feed our base self. Thanks. I worked at a heating and air conditioning company doing bookkeeping. I was being trained by the company's accountant. If I made a mistake, the owner would literally scream at me full voice. I overheard him talking to his brother, and his brother had told him not to scream at me. The owner said, "You have to tear them down to build them up." I decided I wasn't going to take another day of his screaming after that. Nor should you. I am a CPA and used to do bookkeeping. No way in hell should you ever let someone treat you like that. Those are rookie numbers. No, I quit. Grocery store cashier. The customer was angry because her cereal had rung up wrong. I called a price check and this lady berated me the whole time. I recall that she accused me of trying to steal from her, said she was going to get me fired. I looked at her and said, "I make $7.25 per hour no matter how much you pay for this cereal, so I do not give a shit how this situation turns out." She stared at me in shock. The price check comes back saying the price scanned correctly. Silence. I said, "So do you want the cereal or not?" She said, "Yes," and that was that. She did not complain to the manager. Very well spoken. Never fails to astound me how many shitty people just fold in shock when a retail worker says literally anything in response to their bullshit. I ran the entire company's financials and general management for $14 HR. I had a meeting with the owner telling him I need a raise and to hire an assistant. He told me I wasn't business minded and should be a stay-at-home mom. I quit the next day. That was so disrespectful. Yeah, who quits just like that? Bagging groceries at a major supermarket. The manager came over to tell me that I needed to clean up the bathroom. An elderly gentleman fell off the toilet while pooping and it was a literal shitshow. Apparently I was the most qualified because I was 16. I was handed a broom and a dustpan. I shit you not. Sorry, had to. My reward for going above and beyond the Call of Duty? $5 in store coupons. Sometimes dreams really do come true. Not sure about your country, but growing up I always got out of that by saying I haven't been trained in hazardous materials or biomaterial handling and disposal. If you train me and provide the proper protective equipment, I'm happy to do it. They'll always find someone else, as technically it is biohazardous material and by law, at least where I am, requires a bunch of BS. No employer wants to even think about the Ministry of Labor. I know that would work in America, but also, biohazard training is a joke. You watch a like 8-minute video, and they show you where the special biohazard bucket is, and guess what the bucket contains? Standard cleaning supplies and extra gloves. Nothing special, just average stuff that's been put with the bucket. First day at the health department. I'm left at the reception desk alone while literally everyone else in the office went out to a farewell lunch for the person I was replacing. As I was on 90-day probation, wasn't yet licensed and badged, my pay was $7.96 per hour. I'm sitting at reception, and some redneck comes in with a leaking garbage bag and drops it on my desk. It contains a newly beheaded javelina head. His buddy had been bitten, and it needed to be tested for rabies ASAP. I had no ducking clue what to do with a leaking garbage bag of javelina head. He couldn't wait for others to return, so he left a number and split. Turns out, we don't do that sort of thing at the health department. Guy refused to come back. Javelina pig-like creature in Central and South America for anyone else wondering. Edit. SWUSA2. Also a Texan chimed in and said if you're chased by one, climb a tree and they are good eating. Can be eaten. So OP if no rabies you can have a little BBQ. And the southwestern US. I was a manager for a well-known lingerie store. Our location was in a failing suburban mall. The store was giant and shaped oddly. There were dressing rooms in odd hidden corners and a few blind spots. The store was located at the end of the mall next to other stores no one really went to, so there wasn't much foot traffic. We were also always short-staffed because no one wanted to work out there. All of those factors made us a prime location for thieves and weirdos. I would have to do laps around the store due to its layout, and I would regularly come across people doing sex stuff in this one secluded little dressing room. The dressing room was in a sort of alcove and was the least visible spot in the store, so it was prime real estate for all kinds of shenanigans. It ranged from women doing strip teases for men, to catching couples having oral sex, to catching couples having penetrative sex, to catching men masturbating. The final straw was catching a man at closing time, masturbating into a pile of cotton panties with the dressing room door wide open. I couldn't take it anymore. I put in my notice the next day, and what was crazy was that corporate always shrugged or laughed it off when I would call and complain that we needed a security guard. I was 21 at the time, and every woman that worked there was between 19 and 30. It was a safety issue, and they'd also blame us for all the merchandise theft, which we were unable to prevent because there weren't enough bodies in that gigantic store to prevent it. I was also dating a guy who also worked in the mall, and he told me that they finally closed up that one dressing room not long after I left. He said a lot of folks were pissed because apparently that one little dressing room was a well-known open secret spot for hooking up. Same thing happened to me, minus the sex stuff. Huge store, barely any employees, high thefts, no cameras to deter either. Corporate solution? Cut hours even more as a punishment to us, idiots. They always blame the staff. Corporate would berate me on district calls and I'd always tell them no one wants to work here. We generally would have only 2 employees per shift in a store that needed at least 5 or 6. It was physically impossible for us to keep an eye on every part of the store at all times, but they didn't want to hear it. When I was 20 I had 3 jobs. I worked as a bank teller from 8-4, then as a closing shift manager at a coffee shop from 5-10, then as an overnight janitor from 11 to 2 am. This wasn't every day but it was enough that it equated to about 80 hours a week between the 3 jobs. And yes, you can imagine this would lead to burnout real fast. So at the overnight janitor gig my boss comes over to me and asks me to come to the office for a review. This was weird. All I did was mop floors on a production line that made air train brakes. But whatever. I go into his office and he closes the door behind me and pulls out a gay porn magazine and starts asking me about different dongs and put his hand on my shoulder. I was surprisingly calm and just said I don't like dongs and went back to work. Then it hit me what happened. I called in sick the rest of the week and picked up my final paycheck when he wasn't there. It was a hard enough job without being sexually harassed for $8.50 an hour. Oofed. I did not see that coming. Hope you are okay. Thanks. This was 15 years ago and everything is fine. I have a great career, and that guy was fired after other employees came forward with similar complaints. It was actually a very sad case. He was obviously very gay with a wife and kids. I know he was losing his house to her and his kid was dying of something. I think cancer. He ended up losing everything and I think he died homeless. I really don't have any animosity towards the guy. I think he was broken and looking to find a little of himself. Even though the way he did it was absolutely wrong. It's just sad. Doing volunteer work and some busybody started bossing me around like they were in charge. A neighborhood association type person. I told them to back the duck off. It took a couple of seconds for people to realize that the person barking orders wasn't a boss, but an a-hole that was used to being in control. Edit. I didn't expect this to blow up. Just to clarify, if the person is in a position of responsibility, such as treasurer or coordinator, then they have a reason to delegate tasks to some extent. I also didn't use the words back the duck off. It had the same impact and pulled the rug from under him. I don't think it's nice to be overly rude in return because a lot of ignorant people are basically ignorant in the true sense. If you find yourself in a position that you're in charge of organizing an event with volunteers, then you'll need to have a degree of humility that isn't often seen enough in business. My brother did jury service when he was much younger and an older guy on the jury told everyone that he would take the role of foreman of the jury as he had experience of making important business decisions. No debate or anything. He just told them that was what would be happening. When my brother suggested that anyone who wanted to be foreman state their argument for doing so and then let everyone vote, guess who got the least votes and then sulked and argued to the extent that the rest of the jury complained to the court officials and had him removed from the jury? Edit. I didn't think I was being so cryptic, but lots of people seem to think it was my brother that got kicked off the jury. It wasn't. It was the bloke who tried to appoint himself foreman. My brother was actually really excited and more than happy to be on a jury. Edit 2. It also seems that an awful lot of people would do anything they could in order to avoid doing jury service. Weird. I'd love to do it. Edit 3. This comment has blown up an awful lot more than I expected. To clarify, this was in the UK, about 20 years ago. To be selected for jury service is quite rare, in my experience. My brother is one of only 2 people I know that has done it. It is widely considered a civic duty, and whenever I've ever discussed it with anyone, the only people who said that they wouldn't want to do it are self-employed as they get paid a nominal amount. In the UK, I believe that your employer has to by law pay you in full when you are doing jury service. Personally, I believe that in a modern and civilized society, if you are selected to do jury service, then you have a duty to do it unless it will cause you great financial or personal family issues. I used to work at Old Country Buffet, and there were kids who would eat until they threw up like all the time. This one case that is seared into my mind was when I was once fixing up the salad bar and I heard Billy run. Screamed from an ignorant parent, and then I see this 12-ish-year-old boy running to the bathroom. Only he didn't make it. An unholy amount of undigested red jello came exploded out of him like a ducking volcano all over the Caesar salad, the floor next to the cash register, and on about 5 or 6 diners waiting in line to get in. It looked like he had literally vomited his guts out in an arc about 10 feet in diameter. I had to sweep up the chunks with a broom until a dishwasher with a mop could take care of the rest. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.